The New England Patriots travel to Buffalo on Sunday to play the division rival Bills, and folks, this line smells fishy to me. New England only a 4-point favorite on the road in Buffalo, despite the fact the Patriots have absolutely dominated this series for over a decade now. Not only do they beat the Bills nearly every time, they cover nearly every time. Not only do they cover nearly every time, they cover nearly every time in Buffalo. Patriots covering 7 out of the last 8 times they've played in Buffalo, despite being favored in every single one of those games. Yet, again, only 4 here. It's almost, to me, this feels like, and there were several games like this last week, and they almost all turned out in the way of the home favorite. Several games like this where it feels like they're almost baiting you to take the visiting team, which you think is better. You know, based on past history and based on your expectations coming into this season, we certainly think that the New England Patriots are on a different level than the Buffalo Bills. Might I remind you, the Bills have won exactly 4 division games, 4 AFC East games in the past 4 seasons. They play each team in their division twice a year, so it's 24 games. That's 4-20 in the division over the last 4 years. Just futility from the Buffalo Bills. I know they won their last 2 games ever since the Jets blew them out in Week 1 by hanging 48 points on this defense. But even though they've pulled out a couple of wins, they haven't been against stellar competition, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cleveland Browns. So New England, a big step up in competition this week. I know the Patriots are 1-2. To me, if anything, their backs are going to be against a wall here. I saw New England play last week against Baltimore, and it didn't look broken to me. They look like the same old Patriots team, particularly on offense, and really their defense looked just as good as they've looked the last couple of years. I know they're playing a lot of young guys, but New England, Baltimore shouldn't have won that game probably. That botched field goal call at the end of the game, I believe that field goal was no good, and then we'd be talking about the New England Patriots entirely differently after they went on the road and pulled off a win in Baltimore to go to 2-1. But still, it scares me because the games last week, Oakland at home against Pittsburgh only laying 3.5. Now, I thought that was the weirdest, and that one was so weird that I actually, as you know if you saw my picks video, I actually ended up betting on that one, even though I couldn't make a rational argument for Oakland. It was just so strange to me, and I got such a strong feeling that Oakland was going to win that game, and indeed that's what happened. Another one, the Minnesota Vikings, only 6.5, 7-point underdogs against San Francisco. Felt like it'd be very easy to take San Francisco and lay those points. Another one we had to look at last week, Philadelphia Eagles, 3 or 4. That line even moved to 4 later in the week. A road favorite over Arizona. Arizona dominated that game. And then on Monday night, the Green Bay Packers, a 15-1 team last year, playing a team with a rookie quarterback who was not a playoff team last year, not expected to make the playoffs this year. Yet the Packers were only a 3-point favorite. And we talked about in the preview for that game, I was scared off that game just based on that. I said I would have been more comfortable betting on Green Bay if they were 7 or 7.5-point favorites, if that makes any sense. If that doesn't make any sense, you probably don't gamble on sports heavily. But this game, I feel the same way about. I'd almost feel more comfortable back in New England here if they were about a 7-point favorite. The fact that this line's 4 leads me to sort of be a little cautious here. I think, well, wait a second, what am I missing here from the Buffalo Bills? What am I missing on the New England Patriots? Now, in fairness, I know New England lost a terrible game in Week 2 to Arizona, but I also thought New England's Week 1 game was suspicious. Thought they should have been more than a 4.5-point favorite against the Tennessee Titans. And on that Sunday, when New England just blew out Tennessee the entire day, I felt like I left money out on the table. I was kicking myself saying, how could you not bet New England and only lay 4.5 against Tennessee? And if they end up blowing out Buffalo this Sunday, I'll be saying the same thing to myself, no doubt, because I have no plans on backing New England in this game. But I do think the New England side, how do you not lean towards the New England side here based on past results, based on what we've seen from these teams, not only in previous years, but even the past couple of weeks. I know Buffalo's won their last couple of games, and I know, take New England's game against Arizona out of it. Last week, New England looked good on the road against Baltimore. Week 1, they looked great on the road against Tennessee. So why won't they come in here and cover 4 against the Buffalo Bills? I don't know why, but I just have a strange feeling. This is one of those weird games. We saw 3 or 4 of them last week, as I mentioned, and they almost all, the weirdness prevailed last week. And so I'm probably going to be holding off of this one. Now, the trends, if you trust trends and statistics and things like that to point you in the right direction, the over here might be a play worth looking at anyway. The over is 5-1 in New England's last 6 road games and 5-1 in Buffalo's last 6 games overall. Now, the total in this game is 52. That is a pretty big total. Again, we have 2 good offenses here and 2 defenses that, well, have been less than good throughout the first part of the season. Well, it's only 3 weeks into the season, so we don't want to be passing any final judgment on these teams. We saw what a turnaround the New York Giants defense, for instance, made last year from what they were in the beginning of the season. So it's early, but this looks like a game of 2 good offenses going up against 2 bad defenses, which is why we see a total like 52. And again, these 2 teams have been playing a lot of over football lately, so if you feel like this is going to be a high-scoring game, a lot of points put up on the board, maybe the over might be a bet you might want to look at. But beware, New England bettors. This one feels funny to me, and Buffalo just might, inexplicably pull the home upset. And can you imagine the Buffalo Bills through 4 weeks of the season being on first place in the AFC East at 3-1, and New England being in last place at 1-3? I mean, that really boggles my mind, and I think the mind of most NFL fans. Which is why, again, I harken back to it. The fact that everyone thinks that way about this rivalry, and everyone thinks that way about New England. When you see the line at only 4 here, does it not feel like the odds makers are trying to bait you? They know that Joe Public is going to say, New England, only 4 over Buffalo? Sure. I'm telling you, suspicious. We'll see what happens.